Welcome back to Boss Economics World, folks, your one-stop shop for slicing through the economic baloney served up by bureaucrats, politicians, and Wall Street cronies. I'm your host, the guy who's always got his finger on the pulse of the real economy, not the fantasy land some of these suits live in. Today, we're diving headfirst into the latest Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's No Recession fairy tale. Spoiler alert, it's a masterclass in denial, delusion, and downright government mismanagement. Buckle up, because we're about to expose the economic mess they've dragged us into, from the tip of the iceberg to the Titanic-sized disaster lurking beneath the surface. Let's start with the headline that's got everyone buzzing. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went on Fox Business, looked Maria Bartiromo in the eye, and said, the underlying economy is healthy, and there's no reason for the U.S. to see a recession. Oh, and when pressed on whether he could guarantee no downturn, he dodged like a politician at a tax hike debate, calling the question silly. Silly, huh? Tell that to the millions of Americans watching their grocery bills skyrocket, their credit card balances balloon, and their dreams of homeownership vanish faster than a politician's promises after Election Day. Now, look, I get it, nobody expects a Treasury Secretary to come out and scream, we're doomed. But this level of denial is straight out of the Washington playbook. If you ignore the problem, maybe it'll go away. Bessent even doubled down, saying, what I can guarantee you is there is no reason we need to have a recession. Oh, really? No reason? Then why are economists, actual experts, not political appointees, sounding the alarm louder than a fire truck in rush hour traffic? Why are businesses bracing for impact, families cutting back, and markets jitterier than a caffeine addict on a double espresso? Let's be real, folks, Bessent's comments aren't just tone deaf, they're a symptom of a government that's more interested in spinning a rosy narrative than fixing the economic dumpster fire they've helped ignite. And trust me, this fire's got plenty of fuel, from Trump's tariff tantrums to a spending spree that would make a Vegas high roller blush. So, let's peel back the layers, shall we? Because the deeper we dig, the uglier this gets. First up, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the tariff-happy bull in the china shop. Economists are waving red flags about President Trump's proposed tariff hikes, and for good reason. These aren't just policy tweaks, they're economic grenades with the pins already pulled. Trump's been floating tariffs as high as 60% on Chinese goods and 20% on imports across the board. Sounds like a tough guy move to bring manufacturing back home, right? Wrong. It's a recipe for chaos, and the data backs this up. According to an October 2024 report from the Peterson Institute for International Economics, Trump's proposed tariffs could slash U.S. GDP by up to 1.1% by 2026, wiping out $170 billion in economic activity annually. And who pays the price? Not China, not Mexico, you do. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that during Trump's first term, U.S. consumers and businesses bore 93% of the cost of his tariffs through higher prices. That's right, folks, those America First tariffs were essentially a stealth tax on American wallets, to the tune of $40 billion a year in added costs. And let's not forget the ripple effects. Tariffs don't just jack up prices, they disrupt supply chains, spook investors, and kill jobs. Look at what happened during the 2018 to 2019 trade war. U.S. manufacturing employment growth slowed to a crawl, and the Federal Reserve estimated that tariffs shaved 0.2% off GDP growth in 2019 alone. Fast forward to today, and the stakes are even higher. With inflation still hovering at 2.6% as of November 2024, above the Fed's 2% target, adding tariff-driven price hikes is like pouring gasoline on a barbecue. Small businesses, already squeezed by rising costs, are bracing for a knockout punch. A 2024 survey by the National Federation of Independent Business found that 60% of small business owners cited inflation as their top concern, and 45% said they'd have to raise prices if tariffs spike. Great job, government, way to make the country more affordable, as Bessent claims. Now, let's pivot to Bessent's other big claim, that the Trump administration is going to get this spending under control. Oh, please. This is the same administration that's been spending like a kid with a stolen credit card at a candy store. Let's look at the numbers, shall we? Under Trump 2.0, the federal deficit is projected to hit $1.9 trillion in fiscal year 2025, according to the Congressional Budget Office's latest estimates. That's not getting spending under control, that's fiscal irresponsibility on steroids. And don't let them fool you with the "we're transitioning from government spending" line. The truth is, they've been juicing the economy with borrowed money for years, and now the bill's coming due. Take the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan and the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Sure, they propped up GDP growth in the short term, but at what cost? The U.S. national debt now stands at a staggering $36 trillion as of December 2024, or 123% of GDP, per the U.S. Treasury Department. That's the highest debt to GDP ratio since World War II, folks. And unlike World War II, we're not fighting a global war, we're just funding tax cuts for billionaires and corporate handouts disguised as economic stimulus. Here's the kicker, all this spending has fueled inflation, which has eroded the purchasing power of everyday Americans. Real wages, adjusted for inflation, have barely budged since 2021, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Meanwhile, the cost of living is through the roof. A November 2024 report from the Economic Policy Institute found that the average American family now spends $1,000 more per month on basic goods and services compared to 3 years ago. And what's the government's plan? More tariffs, more borrowing, and more empty promises. Bravo, Washington, way to make the country more affordable for working Americans, as Bessent so boldly claimed. Now, let's get to the part where Bessent tries to dazzle us with very good underlying data, pointing to credit cards and banks as proof of a healthy economy. Oh, buddy, you've got to be kidding me. Let's break this down for the folks at home, because this is a masterclass in cherry-picking stats to hide the ugly truth. Sure, credit card spending is up. U.S. consumer credit hit a record $5.1 trillion in October 2024, according to the Federal Reserve. But here's the dirty little secret, people aren't swiping their cards because they're flush with cash, they're doing it because they're desperate. A 2024 survey by Bankrate found that 56% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense without borrowing, and 37% are carrying credit card debt month to month. Credit card delinquency rates, people missing payments, are at their highest level since 2011, with the New York Fed reporting a 9.1% delinquency rate on credit card loans in Q3 2024. Does that sound healthy to you, Mr. Bessent? And don't get me started on the banks. Sure, the big banks are raking in profits. JP Chase reported a record $49.6 billion in net income for 2023, thanks to higher interest rates. But those profits are coming at the expense of consumers, who are getting crushed by 20% plus interest rates on credit cards and auto loans. Meanwhile, small community banks, the lifeblood of local economies, are struggling, with 4,645 bank branches closing since 2020, per the FDIC. So, yeah, Wall Street's doing great, but Main Street? Not so much. Here's the bottom line, folks, Bessent's no recession fairy tale is just the latest chapter in a long saga of government mismanagement. From tariff tantrums to spending sprees to ignoring the warning signs, this administration is steering the economy straight into iceberg territory, and they're too busy rearranging deck chairs to notice. The data doesn't lie. The Conference Board's leading economic index, a key recession predictor, has been flashing red for 18 months straight, with a 4.6% decline in the year ending November 2024. The yield curve, another recession bellwether, has been inverted since mid-2022, signaling investor fears of a downturn. And let's not forget the Consumer Confidence Index, which tanked to 98.7 in November 2024, down from 103.3 the prior month, per the University of Michigan. Translation: people are scared, and they have every reason to be. So, what's the solution? First, ditch the tariffs, they're a lose-lose for consumers and businesses. Second, get serious about fiscal responsibility, stop borrowing trillions to fund tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy. And third, listen to the experts, not the political hacks. Because if we keep letting denial and delusion drive economic policy, we're not just headed for a recession, we're headed for a full-blown crisis. Folks, here's the deal, Scott Bessent and his buddies in Washington want you to believe the economy's a bed of roses, but the truth is, it's a bed of nails, and you're the one lying on it. They'll keep spinning their fairy tales, but here at Boss Economics World, we're not buying it. We're calling out the tariffs, the spending, the denial, all of it. Because you deserve better, America. So, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's keep fighting the good fight against economic nonsense. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, the only thing sillier than Bessent's comments is believing them.